Friday. I'm Katie and this is Katie's Critter Corner. Today I have with me Kitty Angel, and I know you guys are used to seeing him right up there because he sits up there and uses this time to clean himself every time I film a video. So he is going to be helping us out because today we are talking about collars. Collars and identification tags, along with microchips, which we previously talked about, are super important in my opinion. My animals, majority of them that don't take them off, themselves, not me, wear collars and identification tags. This is something that to me is definitely a must that your pet should have. Because even if your pet is microchipped, accidents happen all day, every day, unexpectedly. Things that you may never expect to happen to you and your pet can happen. For instance, you might be leaving to go to work and not thinking about it, and the cat's following you or your dog's following you. You have all these bags. You walk out the door and then your pet runs out right from underneath of your feet. This has happened to me more times than I can count when it comes to my cat Louie. So he always wears a collar and an identification tag because he's not very street smart, and I want people to know if he gets out where he belongs. So the one important thing that I want to stress to you guys is that no matter if you're using a breakaway collar or you are using just a normal regular clasp collar on your cat or your dog, there really is no study that shows one is better than the other, although for cats I do prefer a breakaway collar. The main important thing to drive home is that you need to be making sure that your pet's collar is a snug and proper fit for them. Anything that is super loose and bulky just poses a little bit more risk for something to unfortunately maybe happen to your pet. So rule of thumb for cats, we always say you should be able to fit one finger safely underneath of their collar once it's placed on them. And then for dogs, you should be able to fit 2 fingers safely underneath of their collar once it is placed on them. You also want to make sure that the collar itself cannot slip off their head, because if you go to put a leash on a dog and you're attaching it to a collar and that collar is so loose, there goes the collar, there goes your dog, and you're left holding the leash. So you always want to make sure that the proper snug fit is right for your dog or cat. Also, when we're talking puppies and kittens, you want to make sure that you're monitoring their collars every single week. I know that may sound silly, but it is super important. Puppies and kittens are growing at such a fast rate that they might grow out of a size of their collar and it could be too tight before you even realize it. So checking it every single week to make sure that it is the proper fit for them and adjusting as you go along. Especially if you have a large breed dog, they grow so fast. Since I brought home my puppy 2 months ago, he went from 13 pounds to 43 pounds. So you can imagine we have grown out of collars and harnesses quite quickly. So I can't stress this enough, especially if you have a dog, cat, puppy, kitten with long hair. It may even be a little bit more difficult for the naked eye. So get your hands in there and check it to make sure it's the proper fit for these guys. Another thing that I like to stress is making sure that their collar is not too worn or tattered. It could be time to get a new one because anything that can snag and get caught on stuff obviously is more of a risk. Any of their identification tags that get all scratched up and you can no longer read your name or your phone number, your address, time to change those as well. So you might ask yourself, but my pet's microchipped, they don't need to wear a collar. Yes and no. You are so right, and I cannot agree more with microchipping. We talked about that in one of our previous videos, and I absolutely love a microchip. I think they are great. But what if your pet runs out the door, or what if you go to work and you don't even realize that your cat maybe got outside before you left for work, and now you're home 8 hours later and your cat is nowhere to be found? If your cat, your dog, puppy, kitten is microchipped, that's great, that's an extra layer. But what that collar and identification tag is going to give you is if they get outside and somebody then finds them and has them in their custody, they can look at that name tag and say, oh, this pet belongs to Katie Miller, here's her phone number, I'm gonna give her a call and just let her know that I have her pet. If you have a microchip and no collar and identification tag, unfortunately, that pet will need to see a shelter, a rescue, a veterinarian, somewhere where somebody has a microchip scanner so that they can scan your pet and make sure that they can get it back to you. So that is the one reason why, just for that immediate response if somebody finds your pet, I love to have a collar and identification tag on my pets. Now, along with the collar being a proper and snug fit, I always like to tell people to use your best judgment. If you have a crazy puppy or an adult dog who gets very anxious in a crate, I would say remove their collar. We have had incidents happen where their collars get snagged on the inside of the cage because they get very anxious and worked up, and things can happen that way. God forbid, we don't want that to happen. So I always say use your best judgment. I have 2 older dogs, and when they get crated, they go in there and they think that's a vacation. They use that time to sleep and not do anything. They've never given me a reason to think that I would need to remove their collars. But on my puppy, I never will let him wear a collar while he's in the cage. Not that he's crazy, but it's just in my own mind, it worries me, so I take it off. Another place to look out for is if you have any registers or heating or cooling elements that are in the flooring of your home, be careful. Those metal registers, identification tags can get stuck down in those. My German Shepherd, when we lived in our old house, she would lay on top of those to get warm or to get cool, and her identification tag had gotten stuck down in there because it was shaped like a bone. And she pulled the register right out of the floor. Everything was fine. She just carried it around for a few seconds until it fell off. But I always like to say, just make those things mindful. If your pet's wearing a collar indoors and you have any of these things that could possibly happen, it's kind of like baby-proofing your house, just to make sure that there is nothing that would elevate a risk that we would be concerned about. My kitten just recently got stuck on a window because his collar was just slightly a little bit too loose. And he got stuck on the window. He's perfectly fine. Everything's okay. He had on a breakaway collar, but it was still scary because it's something we didn't expect to happen. And of course, you know, we're always here for you if you have any questions or concerns about your pet wearing a collar, needing a microchip, any of those things. Definitely when you're in the office, this is something you can bring up to your veterinarian and they can walk you through pros and cons. I always say it's not rocket science, but use your best judgment. We want you and your pet to be safe and what's gonna work best for you and your pet's needs. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Our handle is @PleasantValleyVet. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Of course, if you have any ideas for future videos or something you'd like to share with us, please reach out. These are things we definitely want to know. And if you haven't checked out our new website yet, you definitely should. It looks really, really good and we're super proud of it. There's great team photos on there. We're also going to start posting on there what our future events are going to be. So if you're ever unsure of what we're up to for the next few months, please absolutely check in there. And we will see you guys next week. See ya!